Hey guys, welcome to another review. Today we're gonna be taking a look at this amazing green lantern statue. This is a custom piece by Salt and Pepper Studios. And it's an old piece. In fact, this has gone through a lot of different, iterations. But let's just start by talking about Green Lantern. He's obviously one of the DC heroes, a Justice League member, one of the original 7. And I'm not a big DC fan, but let me start by just sort of talking a little bit about him. So, his particular power is he has a ring, and it's obviously green in color. And this ring gives him the ability to create anything that he can think of that's in his mind. And that's a pretty interesting power set, both for the comic books as well as for obviously statue representations of it. When you're bound only by imagination, you can create anything. And that can lead to some really cool, awesome, exciting effects when you draw his powers. And then obviously when you want to turn that into a 3-dimensional representation in statue form. Now, sadly, for quite a long time, this really wasn't taken advantage of, at least in the realm of 3D sculpture, because the technology wasn't there, the ability to create, mass-produced versions really wasn't there, the sculpting, the ambition. So it wasn't there, but as time has passed, and as we now have 3D printing, we've got digital sculpting, we have custom companies who are able to make a few pieces, but of greater complexity and ambition. Green Lantern statues are sort of coming into their own. Now this is one of the first ones, I think, that was done many, many years ago to take advantage of that increased imagination, that increased ambition. And it's pretty amazing. So the conceit is that Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, is using his ring to create this mystical energy. He's using it to create a massive glowing fist that he's going to be attacking his enemies with, and he's sort of in midair, in mid-leap. Now, one of the most difficult things, I've mentioned this before in my video, is one of the most difficult things to do for a statue, for a 3D sculpture, is to somehow create the illusion of flight, the illusion of being suspended in midair. And for certain characters that can fly, such as Superman, for instance, Green Lantern for another, even Wonder Woman, flight is kind of a big part of their power set. It's one of the kind of the iconic things they do. And so it's really difficult, again, to create that illusion of motion and that illusion of suspension. And the great statues are able to somehow achieve that. And there's very few of them that really pull this off. And this definitely does so. So how does it do it? Well, it starts by kind of with the base. So everything here at the base is sort of this clear green resin. You can see it's very large, as big as the size of my hand. And that's the base. This kind of pool of green energy is the base. And then it sort of goes all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. I'll follow it from behind. So all of this is sort of this twisting motion, and it's supposed to almost replicate a water effect or some such, where it's like this energy is actually twisting, flowing, and it turns into this sort of massive energy fist. And this is the fist itself. You can see that. Here's the actual large ring. And then Hal Jordan himself is sculpted as if he's in mid-flight about to punch, and that's actually connected into the resin at this stage right here, in this area here. And it just sort of seamlessly melds into that area. You would have to look very close indeed, like I am doing right here, to actually begin to see where the that seam line is. So it's very cunningly hidden. Now, that's how he's suspended. It takes quite a bit of engineering to kind of make sure that this is large enough and heavy enough to be able to suspend the weight of the entire statue. He's not all that hollow, so if you were to separate him, he has a bit of weight to him. He has a couple pounds of weight to him. So you really need all of this to be balanced so that you know that it can support his weight. And that's only part of it. The second part, of course, is you have to sculpt him in such a fashion that you sell the fact that he's flying, he's in mid-leap. And as far as that goes, that's genius. I mean, they really did an amazing job sculpting him with his legs posed, the arms kind of, in mid-strike, the way his body's contorted, his chest, his back. It really looks like, he's in mid-leap, in mid-strike. So you can't, argue with the anatomy there. It's beautifully, wonderfully done. And again, as somebody who does appreciate anatomy, I do like the fact that he's not ridiculously over-muscled. He doesn't have muscles on muscles. Everything is reasonably proportioned. You can see the deltoids, the bicep, the triceps. You can see the serratus anterior muscles, the rectus abdominis. He doesn't have a 10-pack. He has essentially a 6-pack. He's well-defined. And you can see the arch of the back, all the shoulder muscles here. So overall, very, very nicely sculpted anatomy, great pose, and just like I said, a work of a genius in terms of the power and the energy and the dynamic nature of that pose. The face is also very well done. You can see sort of the intensity of it. He's, his mouth is open, in mid-scream, nicely sculpted hair, the white eyes, the mask. Art direction, A+, okay? Now there was a version before this. I don't know which one. I think it's the first one, where I think Hal Jordan himself is the same, but the actual fist and the base were a bit different. It looked a little bit smoother. There wasn't that sort of cyclone twist over here. It's a little bit smaller. And so that, I think, was version 1. This, I believe, is version 2. And I think they probably made it a little bit bigger just for stability's sake, okay? But, again, this is a very famous piece. Now you have, of course, many, many versions of Green Lantern from both Sideshow as well as XM, the New 52. So there's a lot of different pieces out there. There's an amazing piece that's about to be released in the future with the other version of Green Lantern. Again, I apologize, I'm not a big Green Lantern fan, so I don't know his name. He's African-American, but he looks amazing. Has this huge, translucent green gun. There's ones with him on the top of a cyclone. So there's a lot of different versions out there now. But as far as I'm concerned, I still think that this is the best. And I've seen all of them, some of them in person. I've seen pictures of them. I've seen YouTube video reviews. But this one has sort of the most space. It has the most dynamic power. Everything about this one is just pretty spot on. It's an amazing statue, and it's the best, in my opinion, of all the Green Lanterns at giving you the illusion of flight, the illusion that he's suspended in midair in a way that's believable and that really sells the piece. So as far as that goes, yeah, it's great, okay? Now, what are some of maybe the criticisms or the cons? Number one, this is a custom piece, and it's a custom piece done at a time when the entire concept of customs was still, I think, a little bit new. And so if you look very, very closely, you want to go really macro view, the finish, is a little bit rough. It could be just a touch better. The paint job could be a little bit more sophisticated, have a little bit more shading. The casting is just a little bit rough, not quite as smooth as it could be. These are minor nitpicks, but it has to be said that from a licensed company like, say, XM, Prime One Studios, their work would just be a little bit cleaner, okay? Slightly more, refined in terms of the casting. But again, they have a lot to catch up to in terms of the sheer art direction and the pose. For my money, I think only Prime One's New 52 Flash running along the surface of a wall comes close to this in terms of, again, generating that illusion of movement and dynamic presence. So number one, the finish. Number two, this is a very, very large statue. If you look at it from the side, like this, it just takes up a lot of room because you have to have the base, and then this thing has to curve all the way around, and then you have to give him room to basically be suspended in midair. So it does take quite a bit of space in order for you to truly display it and appreciate it. But again, it's worth it. It's very stable. I had this for a couple years, no leaning problems, no droop. So excellent longevity, excellent quality over time. So yeah, the original Green Lantern by Salt and Pepper Studios. And still, despite all of the advances, all of the ambitious new Green Lantern statues, for my money, it's still one of the best. And definitely one of the best pieces that Salt and Pepper Studios has put out. It's a classic, and can you still get them? This is so old. A lot of the molds used to create them have probably already worn out. Again, they can only make so many of them. I got this from a fellow collector quite a few years ago, and I had it hand delivered. He came in a massive box, and again, there's pros and cons, and there's two sides to every coin. You have to pay for something this amazing, and pay, what I mean by pay is not just money, but he's fragile. It's really hard to ship. You have to have him in a very, very large box. It has to be exquisitely packed and buffered to prevent the translucent base and the connection from snapping in two. And so if I were to ever pack him, I would probably have to do so in 2 boxes to really make sure that he's going to be done safely. So those are some things you have to think about. Let's go in for a couple close-up views so you have an idea of, again, the detail and the beautiful translucent resin that they use to cast this. Again, forgive the dust. I've had it on display for quite a while. Here's the nice stable base. So how many of these were made? I don't know how many. Again, this is from a major company like Sideshow or Prime One. 500 is considered very limited, but these are customs. I would be shocked if more than maybe even 50 of these were ever made. They're very, very rare now to get, very rare to get in good condition. So, I think if you have a chance to get one, definitely, should jump at it. I believe the retail for this was probably around 700, give or take. And then with shipping from, again, China or the Philippines, it can run you easily 200 more than that. But again, I'm sure those of you who own this will agree with me that it still remains one of the best Green Lanterns ever made. Still, that title has yet to be taken from him in this regard. So I hope you enjoyed that. Just sort of going back and backing out. And it's just amazing how much air this guy has underneath him. The recent preview of Rogue by Sideshow Collectibles, where it's kind of the same idea. She's in mid-flight and she's suspended at only one attachment point. And a lot of people were kind of going gaga over that and the engineering and how awesome she looks. And she does look amazing, but look at him. It's been done. He's the pioneer. He has done all of that. He did all of that. And I wouldn't be surprised. I do wonder if maybe he wasn't the inspiration for some of the art direction that Sideshow had for their Rogue, because the pose is very similar. She's gripping, I think, a piece of metal connected to a robot. And of course, he has his green arm, green fist. But the pose is very similar. But I hate to say it, because I'm a big Rogue fan, but Hal Jordan just looks a little bit better in terms of, again, the way they sculpted his body, his musculature, and that pose. So, hope you enjoy that. It's a pretty rare piece. There's only a few videos of him on YouTube, so I wanted to add my voice and my opinion and my version to that mix. And until next time, take care.